There is a creature that can lose an entire leg and simply grow it back, exactly as it was. It can lose part of its heart and rebuild it. It can lose part of its brain and recover it. It can even suffer a crushed spinal cord and walk again. This animal is called the axolotl, and it may be the closest thing nature has to a living miracle. Most animals that lose a limb are left with a scar, or nothing at all. Humans heal wounds by forming scar tissue, a patch that seals the damage but never restores what was lost. The axolotl does something entirely different. Instead of scarring over an injury, its body treats the wound as an invitation to rebuild. Within hours of losing a limb, something extraordinary begins at the site of the wound. Skin cells at the edge of the injury start to change. They lose their identity as skin, muscle, or bone. They revert into a more primitive, flexible state, almost like starting over from scratch. This cluster of transformed cells is called a blastema. The blastema behaves like a tiny construction site, full of raw material and no fixed plan yet. Signals from the axolotl's nervous system tell these cells what to become. Slowly, the blastema begins organizing itself into new bone, new muscle, and new skin. Blood vessels grow into the structure, feeding it as it forms. Nerves regrow alongside the new tissue, reconnecting the limb to the rest of the body. Within weeks, a fully functional new leg emerges, complete with bones, muscles, and even fingertips. It is not a scar, and it is not a stump. It is a perfect working replacement. The axolotl can repeat this process again and again on the same limb without any decline in quality. Scientists have amputated the same leg on a single axolotl more than 20 times. Each time, a brand new, fully functional limb grew back. But limbs are only the beginning of what this animal can do. The axolotl can also regenerate its tail, including the spinal cord and nerves running through it. In most animals, spinal cord damage means permanent paralysis. In the axolotl, a severed spinal cord can heal and reconnect on its own. The animal will move its tail again, exactly as it did before the injury. Even more remarkable, the axolotl can regenerate parts of its own brain. Researchers have removed sections of axolotl brain tissue and watched entirely new brain cells regrow in their place. The new tissue does not just fill the space, it reconnects with the rest of the brain and begins functioning again. The axolotl can also regenerate parts of its heart. When a portion of cardiac tissue is removed, new heart muscle cells form to replace it. In humans, damaged heart tissue turns into scar tissue that never beats again. In the axolotl, the heart simply rebuilds itself and keeps pumping. Even the eyes are not beyond its abilities. Axolotls have been shown to regenerate damaged portions of their own retinas. There is almost no part of this animal's body that cannot, in some way, come back. To understand why this creature is so different, it helps to understand what an axolotl actually is. Most amphibians go through a process called metamorphosis. A tadpole changes into a frog, its gills disappear, and its body transforms to live on land. The axolotl never does this. It stays in its juvenile aquatic form for its entire life. It keeps its external feathery gills, its wide flat head, and its permanently aquatic body. This condition is called Neoteny, and it means the axolotl reaches adulthood without ever growing up in the traditional sense. Some scientists believe this permanent youthfulness is connected to its regenerative power. Young, undifferentiated cells are naturally more flexible and adaptable than older, specialized ones. By staying in this youthful state for life, the axolotl may keep the biological tools needed for constant regeneration active. Other animals lose much of this ability as they mature. Humans, for example, can regenerate the tips of their fingers as young children, but lose that ability almost entirely by adulthood. The axolotl seems to have simply never turned that ability off. This creature is native to a very specific place on Earth. It comes from the lake systems surrounding Mexico City. Its name comes from the Aztec language, Nahuatl. In Aztec mythology, Xolotl was a god associated with fire, lightning, and the underworld. According to legend, Xolotl transformed himself into a salamander to escape being sacrificed by the other gods. The axolotl was named in his honor, a creature that could shift its own form to survive. For centuries, axolotls thrived in the canals and wetlands of the Valley of Mexico. The most famous of these waters is Lake Xochimilco, a network of canals just south of Mexico City. Ancient civilizations built floating gardens on these waters, and axolotls lived quietly beneath them. They were once so common that they were part of local diets and traditional medicine. But the modern world has not been kind to this creature. Mexico City's rapid growth drained and polluted much of the lake system the axolotl calls home. Invasive fish species were introduced into the canals, and they began eating axolotl eggs and young. Wastewater and agricultural runoff further degraded the remaining water quality. Today, wild axolotl populations have collapsed by more than 90% in just a few decades. Some surveys have found only a handful of individuals left in the wild. The axolotl now holds a place on the critically endangered species list. An animal capable of regenerating its own limbs, heart, and brain may not be able to save itself from extinction. This irony has not been lost on the scientists studying it, because the very trait that makes the axolotl vulnerable to environmental change is the same trait making it invaluable in laboratories. Researchers around the world now breed axolotls specifically to study regeneration. In fact, more axolotls now exist in laboratories and as pets than in the wild. Scientists want to understand exactly how the blastema works at a genetic level. They want to know which genes switch on to trigger this rebuilding process. If those genes could be identified and understood, the implications for human medicine could be enormous. Imagine a future where a person who loses a limb could regrow it, rather than relying on a prosthetic. Imagine spinal cord injuries that heal completely, restoring movement instead of causing permanent paralysis. Imagine heart attack damage that repairs itself instead of leaving scar tissue behind. These are not simple fantasies. They are the exact questions driving axolotl research today. Scientists have already made progress in understanding certain genes that appear critical to the process. One area of focus is a gene related to a protein called amblor, involved in limb regeneration. Other studies look at how axolotl immune cells behave differently from human immune cells during healing. In most animals, the immune system rushes to seal a wound as quickly as possible, prioritizing speed over precision. This fast sealing is part of why humans form scars instead of new tissue. Axolotl immune cells appear to behave more patiently, allowing the blastema time to properly organize new tissue. Understanding this difference could one day help researchers redirect human healing toward regeneration instead of scarring. Some laboratories have even begun editing axolotl genes to study regeneration in even greater detail. In 2018, scientists successfully mapped the axolotl's full genome for the first time. It turned out to be one of the largest genomes ever sequenced, roughly 10 times larger than the human genome. Somewhere within that vast genetic code lie the instructions for regrowing an entire limb from nothing. Finding and understanding those instructions remains one of the great challenges in regenerative biology today. Despite decades of research, no other vertebrate studied so far can regenerate as completely as the axolotl. Even closely related salamander species lose much of this ability once they undergo metamorphosis. This suggests that something about staying in a permanently juvenile state protects this extraordinary capability. It raises a strange and fascinating question about the trade-offs of growing up. Perhaps maturity, in some biological sense, comes at the cost of flexibility. The axolotl, by never fully growing up, may have simply never paid that price. Outside the laboratory, axolotls have also become unlikely celebrities. Their wide, smiling faces and feathery gills have made them popular pets and internet icons around the world. Video games, cartoons, and plush toys have introduced millions of people to this creature who have never seen a real one. Ironically, the axolotl may now be more recognized globally than it has ever been in its own homeland. Conservationists hope this popularity can be turned into support for saving the wild population. Efforts are underway in Mexico City to restore parts of the Xochimilco canal system. Local scientists have created protected refuges within the canals, shielding axolotls from invasive predators. Community-led conservation projects now involve local farmers who once relied on the same waterways. Restoring traditional farming methods has, in some areas, actually improved water quality for the axolotls. It is a rare case where reviving old traditions may help save a modern conservation crisis. Still, the road to recovery remains difficult and uncertain. Urban expansion continues to place pressure on the remaining wetlands. Climate change adds further unpredictability to water levels and temperature in the region. Without continued intervention, some scientists fear the axolotl could disappear from the wild entirely within our lifetime. It would be a strange and painful irony, losing a creature that might hold answers to human healing. For now, the axolotl exists in a delicate balance between two worlds. In laboratories, it is treated as one of the most valuable research animals on the planet. In the wild, it teeters on the edge of vanishing altogether. Its story is both a marvel of biology and a warning about what we stand to lose. Every time an axolotl regrows a limb, it does something no scalpel or medicine can fully replicate. It does not patch the damage, it truly rebuilds it, cell by cell, exactly as it was before. In some ways, it treats injury not as an ending, but as an instruction to begin again. Perhaps this is the deepest lesson hidden inside such a small, unassuming creature. That the body, given the right conditions, may be far more capable of healing than we ever imagined. That regeneration might not be a fantasy limited to myths and legends. That somewhere, in our own biology, dormant instructions may still exist, waiting to be understood. The axolotl does not ask to be studied, and it does not know its own significance. It simply drifts quietly through shrinking canals, regrowing whatever it loses, one limb at a time. In its small, smiling face lies a question science has only begun to answer. What if losing a part of yourself did not have to be permanent at all?